Right, so let's go right into it with a little thing that Ramaphosa said in Parliament. So Ramaphosa was speaking about denying that apartheid was a crime against humanity. And the wording is not entirely exact here, but basically he said that it rose to the level of being treasonous when you denied that apartheid was a crime against humanity because it cut against the core of the non-racial ethos and values of the nation. Gabriel, should it be treasonous? Should we think of it as treasonous?
No, I think the short answer is no. This is about words. This is easy to write off as just semantics, but words are sort of a huge. They're how we communicate, and how we communicate is how we weave the fabric of society together and sustain it. So to go back, F.W. de Klerk never denied that apartheid was terrible, wicked, awful, evil, and stupid. He said that it was. He also did more than talk the talk. He walked the walk. He dismantled apartheid. He has as much claim as anybody in the world to having been at the forefront of undoing that corrupt system. When he said that it's not a crime against humanity, he was saying that the UN's definition of a crime against humanity is misapplied to this case because it also applies to the genocide case. That's one of the arguments, and apartheid is not the same as genocide. The other argument is that the lobby to get the UN to say this was by the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was lobbying to declare apartheid a crime against humanity at the same time that it had literally millions, tens of millions of people in gulags and was being friendly and propping up dictators who were burying their opponents alive underground in the Middle East, in the Far East.
Genocide.
In some cases committing genocide. So there was a hypocritical aspect to that frustrated de Klerk. Are those arguments good enough? I would say the first argument is not good enough. The UN also declares murder and rape to be a crime against humanity. So there have been at least 500,000 crimes against humanity in South Africa since 1994. I think rather than saying crimes against humanity are this really awful thing, let's preserve the word only for genocide, we can let genocide do the work of the word of genocide and let crime against humanity speak to anything that, whether you are within a particular legal system or not, is something that shouldn't be done. So murder, rapes are crimes against humanity. Apartheid was a crime against humanity. Expropriation without compensation would be a crime against humanity. And that's the way that we should be thinking about it, but it's a semantic thing. Ramaphosa is making a semantic mistake too in saying that this is treason. And I think because the definition of treason is quite narrow.
Yeah, I'm very hesitant to ever apply that term to something that isn't action that directly undermines the legitimacy of the state in a violent way.
Exactly. The violent attempt to overthrow a government, that's treason. Planning to do it, that's treason. Yes. Anything else is not treason.
Leaking to an enemy nation during a war.
Yeah. But so here's a very frustrating thing about, so if you cut through the semantics, which are, some people are just going to talk about words to be esoteric, philosophical hogwash. If you cut through that, what's the human story here? The human story is that F.W. de Klerk did a great and important thing in leading the way from the Nat side to dismantling apartheid. He has subsequently been an exemplary sort of emeritus of leadership in this country. He's been quite reserved. He hasn't said a hell of a lot. Where he has come forward, he's generally said really sound and good things. On the 30th anniversary of Nelson Mandela's release from prison, a release that was ordered by F.W. de Klerk, together with his ordering of the unbanning of the SACP and the ANC, really important progressive steps towards dismantling the system. He's not given a lot of time of day, and in fact, in the next SONA, he's sort of hounded by Julius Malema. Ramaphosa then decides to go after F.W. de Klerk, not in terms of what he was actually saying and not in terms of what he's actually stood for, but sort of taking this very unsympathetic interpretation of his semantic quibble with the UN, basically, and blowing it up to say that, one of the great living heroes, one of the two living Nobel laureates of peace in this country is treasonous. This seems like an opportunistic way to drum up support from the ultra-race nationalists who hate F.W. de Klerk, in particular the EFF. And at the same time that Ramaphosa is calling F.W. de Klerk treasonous, he's calling on Julius Malema and his wife to say, I'm very sorry that another ANC MP declared that he has evidence of domestic abuse in your household. So I think Ramaphosa's, I think that he is demonstrating it seems cynical to me. It's hard to understand this without cynicism. Either he didn't hear what de Klerk actually said, where de Klerk actually, literally in the same sentence that he said it's not a crime against humanity, he said, I'm not denying that it was terrible. I'm not denying that it was wicked. And please look at my record. I helped dismantle it. He either didn't hear that, or he did hear it and he doesn't want other people to hear that. Instead, he wants to undermine an important icon in this country, so someone that we can all get behind.
He's either ill-informed or malicious. Herman, what's your take?
Well, I think the absurdity, I think, was captured in the first remarks you made, is that treason has a very narrow definition. And it's interesting, Gabriel and I are currently looking at some positions surrounding EWC, and it's fascinating when people say, this is the position of the ANC president, not of the government. So who says what matters? The fact that in the national parliament, the president of the republic called the former president a traitor to his country is meaningful.
Yeah.
It's not just a thing that should be said and, as Gabriel says,
this is not chilling around a braai.
No, this is the president of the country
In a speech.
in
It
a
was not
speech,
an
in an
offhand
official
remark.
address
To
to Parliament, calling a former president and a former
Treasonous.
deputy president of this constitutional dispensation treasonous. A
It's very
traitor
serious.
to his country.
It's like, is he going to ask the NPA to follow that up with an investigation? Is this going to go to the
Either he should.
Equality Court?
Either he should do that and follow through on the weight of his remarks and of his office, or he should be very careful ever saying something like this again and should apologize at the earliest opportunity. You cannot have it, it was just a presidential remark. No. Or either
you can't have it both ways.
So my read of the speech was that it was actually very almost an offhand remark that he didn't expect to be taken that seriously.
But his offhand remarks are awful.
He baked into the. It wasn't an offhand remark in the sense that it wasn't prepared. It's an offhand remark in the sense that it was right at the end of paragraphs. It was kind of just to sort of punctuate it and say, this is... So he himself was kind of delegitimizing the word and using it cheaply.
Yeah.
That was the intention.
Something that I just quickly want to jump in here is Ramaphosa needs to be more careful with what he damn well says. This is the same president who denied farm murders in this country.
Yeah, he said there are no farm killings.
No farm killings. Not some qualified, it's an overblown issue. He said there's no farm killings. He said the days of load shedding is over, that there would... this president must be more careful with what he says.
If he does want to point out, treason, I don't know how far it goes. I mean, I think Andile Mkutama at Black First Land First, they've called for mass illegal land invasions. Their slogan was Black First Land First. They've made comments that more explicitly laid out the sort of either you give us all of your land, or we're going to kill all white people, drive you all into the sea. Land or death.
That 5-in-1 ratio thing.
Yeah. You've got Julius Malema saying we're going to slaughter all whites if we don't get what we want in terms of land. Like, if you are going to use the word treason cheaply, sort of outside of its narrow definition.
And you're the president of the republic.
Those seem like
more appropriate cases. Perhaps.
Direct assaults on the fabric of the society. Yes. F.W. de Klerk did not deny that apartheid was bad. He is not an apartheid denialist. He is an apartheid dismantler. And
one of the few in history.
Yeah.
When you look at what he goes on to say in the speech, that's exactly the point he's saying. He's saying it's treasonous because it undermines the project of non-racial reconciliation and that kind of thing.
Helped launch that project.
But as you say, these comments are far more damaging to that, and Ramaphosa never had any desire to say anything similar.
And he can be mature and say, look, guys, and there've been all kinds of apologies coming out of de Klerk's corner for saying, I'm very sorry for the confusing impression that this made. And Ramaphosa could have latched onto that and said, look, a confusing impression was made, but I want to stand in solidarity with the former deputy president of this constitutional dispensation to say that the important message to get from it is that this guy knows that apartheid was, by any name, evil and wicked and stupid, and by his deeds undid it. And it's too easy for the youth and those race rabbit populists who are trying to stoke up fear to villainize this guy. But we've got to remember that it wasn't Mandela alone, it wasn't the ANC alone, that that creating this wonderful South African rainbow was a multilateral effort, and in order for it to continue, it needs to continue to be a multilateral effort. We need collaboration from people
it is a
inside and
project that
outside of the
belongs
ANC.
to no one group in South Africa.
And
He could have said that. It's really it's available.
Another facet
not hard
of,
to
this,
imagine.
of this issue is if de Klerk wanted to say it's a crime against humanity. Oh, it's not a crime against humanity. It wasn't evil. It was nice. I ended it because, I was concerned about my pension. Even if de Klerk had said something as absurd as that, apartheid was actually quite good for the blacks, as many on the far right of racial extremism in this country sometimes claim.
Yeah, his opponents, the people that he had to
the people who call him a traitor.
Who call him a commie. Even if he had said that, that is still not treason. That's the problem with being in favor of free speech, is you end up defending the rascals and the rogues. And
well, if no one wants to ban uncontentious speech,
and it's just the whole case that Gabriel is making about the context of this is absolutely correct. But then even if that case completely was ignored, you still have the basic freedom of speech issue, that it's the right of a citizen of a free constitutional dispensation to say that I don't think the previous dispensation was a crime against humanity. I personally think they're wrong. The legal definition to my mind seems quite clear. But either we have a country with freedom of expression or not.